An accidental audio leak from a hotline has revealed scathing criticism of Keir Starmer by G7 leaders, exposing their growing frustration with the UK Labour Party leader. These candid remarks have dealt a significant blow to Starmer's personal credibility and damaged the UK's international reputation. This prompts a crucial question. Could this spell the end of Starmer's political career? Or might it offer Britain a chance to reassess and rebuild its global standing? Starmer attended the G7 meeting, intending to advocate for action on Syria and Russia, but his proposals were met with indifference, particularly regarding Ukraine. The meeting quickly became a political disaster, with potentially serious consequences for the UK. Imagine the scene. Starmer joins the virtual G7 session, exuding confidence. Yet, as soon as his camera switches on, the atmosphere shifts. Leaders like Biden, Macron, and Scholz exchange disinterested glances. As Starmer outlines his ideas on Syria, he is met with silence. His charts and detailed plans draw skeptical or pitying looks. When he concludes, Biden responds dismissively, saying, "Interesting perspective, Keir," before moving on. Starmer's proposals on Russia only deepened the divide, showcasing his misalignment with G7 priorities. At one point, a leader bluntly asks, "Is this plan even feasible?" Silence follows, as Starmer struggles to justify his stance. His tough rhetoric on Russia backfires, leaving the UK looking out of touch on the global stage. The fallout was immediate. Starmer's performance not only embarrassed him, but also angered the British public. Supporters of firm action against Russia felt let down, while critics of sanctions questioned his judgment. By the end, Starmer had managed to alienate both sides, raising serious doubts about his capability to lead on foreign policy. As the call progressed, audible sirens from Labour Party headquarters signalled the fallout. Weeks of damage control would follow, but Starmer pressed on. After his failure on Russia, he turned to Ukraine, hoping to recover lost ground. Despite his impassioned calls for military aid and tougher sanctions, the G7 leaders exchanged blank stares, showing little interest. Biden's dry response, "Thank you for your input, Keir," before swiftly moving to the next agenda item, sealed Starmer's fate. His moment to shine on Ukraine ended without discussion, leaving him seen as inconsequential. This wasn't merely a personal embarrassment. It struck a damaging blow to the UK's standing on the international stage, sidelining Britain on a critical issue. Starmer's lackluster diplomacy highlighted his shortcomings in international relations, particularly after the Ukraine episode. His attempts to impress at the G7 meeting continued to fall flat. Beginning with awkward small talk, he failed to read the room. A poorly timed joke about Brexit and fishing quotas only deepened the leader's discomfort. Trying to assert himself, Starmer proposed a diplomatic strategy that directly clashed with G7 priorities. The leaders were visibly stunned, struggling to hide their surprise. What followed wasn't just a personal misstep. It posed a real threat to the UK's global reputation. Starmer's weak grasp of international relations left him looking out of his depth. As the meeting shifted to global economic issues, he made an effort to regain momentum, sharing statistics and policy suggestions. But his input was ignored. Repeated interruptions further undermined him. At one point, the German Chancellor cut him off mid-sentence. By the meeting's end, Starmer had been reduced to silence, his flushed face revealing his discomfort. This feeble performance left the UK with minimal influence over key decisions, further eroding its foreign policy standing. Britain was effectively relegated to a passive observer during global economic discussions. This lack of engagement not only damaged the UK's credibility, but also put its practical interests at risk. British businesses and workers, expecting robust representation at the negotiating table, were left without a voice. This lack of influence could have significant long-term implications, potentially jeopardizing future economic partnerships and trade agreements. As the meeting wrapped up, the UK's declining global standing was starkly clear. With Starmer sidelined, Britain's ability to shape international economic policy appeared gravely compromised. Meanwhile, other leaders pressed on with discussions involving billions of dollars. The absence of British input went largely unnoticed by the major world powers, further underlining the UK's diminished role. But the fallout didn't end there. After the formal meeting concluded, the leaders assumed they could speak candidly. However, an open microphone captured every word. What began as casual remarks quickly turned into a cascade of criticism when Starmer's name came up. One leader described his performance as unimpressive. The tone escalated, with scathing comments questioning his competence, understanding of global issues, and diplomatic skills. A particularly cutting remark came from a usually reserved figure. "I've seen a wet paper bag do better." The worst part? The entire exchange was recorded. Within hours, excerpts flooded the news and social media. Starmer's team scrambled to manage the fallout, but softening such blunt critiques proved nearly impossible. The consequences of this G7 fiasco could be massive. Resignations, a complete overhaul of Labour's foreign policy approach, and even calls for Starmer to step down seem increasingly likely. When world leaders openly question your competence, recovering from that stigma becomes almost impossible. This debacle not only damaged Starmer personally, but also exposed serious weaknesses within the Labour Party, potentially triggering a leadership crisis at a critical juncture. As the news broke, panic gripped Labour headquarters. Initial attempts to downplay the incident were futile. The reality was undeniable. This disaster could reshape the party's trajectory. Efforts to contain the damage continue, but they face an uphill battle. How does a leader recover after being ridiculed on the global stage? Labour's communications team is working tirelessly, but their efforts appear increasingly futile. Once, the party envisioned a clear path to 10 Downing Street, but after this G7 debacle, that dream is slipping away. Labour MPs, previously cautious or silent, are now openly questioning Starmer's leadership. Discontent is mounting, with growing calls for his resignation. What do you think of this news? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.